Morning, everyone. We'll go ahead and get started with our media Zoom this morning, and I'll turn it over to Coach Eilert.
Good morning, everybody. Just want to recap the Florida trip. I thought for the most part, we had a lot of positive moments. Outside of a 10-15 minute stretch against SMU, we played pretty good basketball, considering, the challenges we're facing. And so I'm very, pleasantly surprised at, wouldn't say pleasantly surprised. I've been happy with the way we're competing. I'm excited the way we're competing and the way we're handling these challenges, but we just got to figure out a way to, get over that hump and figure out a way to be more disciplined down the stretch, take care of the ball a little better and figure out a way to come out of these games with victories. So I've been very encouraged with the way we competed the last couple games, and, certainly not the outcome we had in mind in terms of, coming out of a 2-game stretch in Florida, but it is what it is at this point. We're 2-3. Now we got to move forward with 4 games at home and take advantage of our home stretch. Yesterday we had to take the day off and due to NCAA rules. So we took that day off. We spent some time as a team together and, had a nice meal and even went bowling and spent some time together. And you could tell that the guys needed a day off. I believe I got in bed at 4 a.m., coming back from Florida. So travel's never easy and never seems to be. Everything seemed to be delayed, and we had to fly in and out of Pittsburgh rather than Clarksburg. So got us in a little bit late and got in bed by about 4. So like everybody slept in yesterday, and yesterday afternoon we spent some time together, did some bowling and got a good night's sleep last night. So we're going back to work today, focusing on Bellarmine and focusing on them today and tomorrow, and getting ready to take on a good solid basketball team that's coached very well on Sunday afternoon. So excited to have the next 4 games at home. Really need Mountaineer Nation to back us and support us and show up and give us that energy that we need to get over the hump and get going in a positive direction. And I think we will, but we could use some help from our the loyal supporters that continue to back us and support us. And even in Florida, we had a really good contingent of fans that showed up and were loud and proud and gave us all that support. So with this homestand, we're really going to need that support behind us and to pick up our energy, especially with shorthanded roster, to be able to lay it out on the line every single possession. It's going to be extremely important. And back to Bellarmine, very well coached team, a team that presents so many. Each team presents different challenges. Bellarmine has a group that it seems to be that they all can shoot it. They all take care of the ball. They move the ball efficient. They keep it moving. They very, very rarely do you ever see a ball screen, but they really play well together. A team that's veteran led has got 9 returning lettermen, 4 starters. So they got a lot of a cohesive group, and probably not the most athletic group, but the very cohesive group that can give you challenges on the defensive end. So open it up to questions.
Questions for Coach? Go ahead and unmute yourself and go ahead, Justin.
Coach, who won the bowling match?
It certainly wasn't me. I was doing a lot of experimentation with some spins and whatnot. So I took an L to my son. I know that. And I had to pay him some cash on the side because, you get to a point where they're old enough to beat you. And that's a hit on your old ego. So
that's right. Yeah.
I took an L to my son, but it seemed like everybody was having a good time in their respective lanes, and I'm excited to see everybody, come together and do some things outside of basketball. And even Coach DeMar had a lot of family in town. So he, after we got done eating there, at Kegler's together, he had a bunch of them over to his house. So it was a good day for everybody to, get a good night's sleep in after the late return, and the fact that everybody slept probably till noon or later, it sounds like, and we spent the afternoon together and hopefully got a great night's sleep last night, and now we're, in the weight room and grinding in the weight room and preparing for Bellarmine.
Hey, the question I want to ask about Bellarmine, I mean, you've dealt with scheduling directly for the last 4 or 5 years at least, probably,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
With what Coach Davenport does there with his non-conference schedule, if you're a Power 5 team, does it take anything more than a phone call to schedule them?
They're one of those teams that nobody really wants to play. And even going back to the Missouri State game, and the first thing that Dana had to say to me was thank you. He said, thank you for playing us. We can't get anybody to play us. And some of these teams that a lot of the Power 5 schools do really shy away from playing because they can cause a lot of problems for certain teams. And we've never really been a team to shy away from competition or shy away from those teams that can help you with your resume come March. So that's the type of approach we've had scheduling. So whether we change that approach moving forward, it all depends on how settled in we get with our roster and moving forward in terms of our growth. So certainly I probably would have scheduled a little differently knowing our circumstances.
Right.
And going into this season with all the challenges and 3 starters down and playing a short bench, I would have scheduled a heck of a lot different knowing that. But that's where we're at, and it's nobody's fault. Within our program right now, we're just trying to get through this stretch and with minimal damage so we can get back to as much as a full strength roster as we possibly can given our circumstances.
When you look at their schedule, Bellarmine's schedule, what's your reaction? I mean, they've already played K-State and Washington. I think they got a trip to Utah coming up, a trip to BYU, play you guys. I think there's another Power 5 team on there somewhere too. Louisville, I think they play Louisville, maybe.
So many of these teams, they're playing for March.
Yeah.
So their non-conference really doesn't mean much to them because they're not looking at trying to get an at-large bid, which my understanding is they're in their 4th year of transition. So I don't even know if they could make the NCAA tournament anyway, even if they got the automatic bid. And you could correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not sure.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
I think they are in their 4th year of transition, or maybe they are eligible. I have to look that up. But regardless, they're playing all these bye games because they have to go. Certain coaches have to raise a certain amount of money with bye games for their budget to maintain their budget. So they have to be bought by a certain amount of high major teams to get that number. Now, for some of these teams, like I said, they're playing for March. So as battle tested as they can possibly be in the non-conference, when they go to their conference and can understand who they are and what they have to do to compete and know more about their team going in their conference, and they're playing for March, and the only way to get to the NCAA tournament is to win in March and be that automatic qualifier, then that's kind of the approach they have.
Thank you, Coach.
Questions for Coach? Go ahead and unmute your line. Go ahead, Greg.
Josh, you mentioned more discipline down the stretch, finding a way to win. Ultimately, what does that take? I mean, how do you get that out of this group, especially with only having 7 or 8 available bodies right now?
Film study, reps. There's a lot of things you can correct just by simply, say for instance, our guards coming when they're stringing ball screens out and just keeping your dribble and not putting yourself in a position where you pick up your dribble against the ACC, defensive player of the year. And that's kind of what we did several times with our guard play. Sometimes it's not dribbling and, getting that comfort dribble and when you receive the ball and making a quick pass. So we're making some mistakes from that end to where if we just think of things differently and approach things differently and handle, and a lot of these guys are put in positions they've never been put in before. So they're trying to get that comfort level. So the more we can rep it, the more we can show them on film. Some of them very simple things to clean up, but it's gotta register, with them and their basketball IQ before we can clean it up.
Questions for Coach? Go ahead, Hertz.
Yeah, Coach. Uh, everybody wants to know, I guess, what you learn as a team, fundamentally and basketball wise. But what have you guys learned about yourselves by what's happened and how it's transpired to this point?
I mean, hopefully, I mean, we certainly want to learn by winning. You don't want to learn by losing, but you got to figure out how you learn regardless. And we certainly down the stretch, those discipline that we talked about, whether it be, turning the ball over when we're trying to, get it into the post on a post entry pass, or the discipline in terms of getting that rebound where you needed, one stop and a rebound, and you got a chance to win the game with 10 seconds, 10, 12 seconds. I mean, that's critical moments. And I continue to talk to these guys over and over. This is a possession game. We have very, very little margin for error given our circumstances. So every single possession has to be a complete battle. And you got to understand that possession might be the possession that changes the game. So I credit to the guys for how much they've grown over the last 5 games. But regardless of saying that, we're 2-3. We're 2-3. So we got to figure out how we even continue to grow even further until we can get some help to where we're more of a complete team.
Seems to me that possibly, shall we say, getting consistency. I mean, you've had Seth playing spurts, and you've had as hard and as good as Edwards has played. There's been moments where he hasn't. A part of that's obviously due to being tired, but part of it's also, just a lack of consistency, I guess, is the way you put it.
Yeah, and we can't get too one-dimensional by any means. We have to throw it into the post, and we have to utilize Jesse because he is, our bread and butter in a lot of ways. But we got to make shots, surrounding him, and we got to get those guys confident. And I had that deep conversation with them at halftime. I looked down the stat line, and all of our shooters were over, and I'm like, guys, I mean, you got to understand, you guys are shooters. You're in there to play a role. You got to play a lot of roles, but the main role is you got to make shots. Step up there with confidence and make shots. Nobody's trying to tell you not to shoot the ball. We want to take good shots, certainly, and we want to take shots at our offense, but we can't be the ones that are creating those things off the bounce. We got to create it for one another. And I tried to instill as much confidence as I could, especially with Seth and Kobe and Josiah had a rough game, never did see one fall. But those guys got to figure out, where their shots are coming from and what's a good shot, what's a bad shot. And I think they know, but I think at this point, sometimes we've crippled them a little bit with, hounding them like, play with your instinct. At the end of the day, I need you to play with instinct. You're a shooter. Don't question a shot. If it's an open shot, you take it.
Back to Justin.
Hey, Coach, I got a 2-part question here, and they're both kind of focused on the roster here. Obviously, the challenge is shorthanded. And 4 games, you're getting back Kerr, which obviously helps. But in your opinion, though, I mean, there are still shorthanded challenges to face even when he comes back, isn't there?
Yes, there's plenty of challenges still, and I'm not entirely, I haven't lost all hope for RaeQuan. I still think there's a possibility to see RaeQuan. So I hope that things change in that regard. So I'm an optimistic person. So I see down the road that we got help with Kerr, definitely. Maybe some of these tests and things that are going on with the cook can give us, an opportunity to see him back on the floor at some form or fashion. So we're trying to figure that out in the meantime. And RaeQuan's situation is certainly not dead. So yeah, I mean, I hope that the only thing I do know right now is Kerr's coming back for 4 games. does that entirely help our depth? It doesn't hurt anything whatsoever to have a point guard
Sure,
out there to help
sure.
distribute. I think we're going to get a heck of a lot better shots, and he's going to create us a lot better shots. And that's no knock on Kobe. Kobe's done an extremely a great job given his circumstances, and so. But to bring more depth in the guard position and a guy that's been so proven, and even in the last 2 years, I think he led the Pac-12 in assists per game. So to have a guy like that getting people, creating for people is going to be extremely valuable to our offense. And you can see that based on our numbers and our production, even in the 2 games, whether it be Vanderbilt and George Mason, where we had Kerr to work with, compared to the games we haven't. It's been it's a huge difference in just one guy not be able to run the show and create.
The other question was about RaeQuan, and I heard your statement after the Virginia game the other night with his lawyers and his family lawyers are kind of taking it from here. Obviously the court system is not swift in this country, and I'm not sure how something like this would go. But if it were to drag on, and then all of a sudden you get to February or mid-February, and something happens where he could play, if it's that late in the season, is there a decision there to be made on your part on whether or not it would be worth him?
I've thought about that a lot, and it's definitely if it is something that's drug out all too long, then it's gonna be a decision whether what's best for RaeQuan. And from my perspective, so much of this, and I'd love to see him on the floor, and he could really help us and help our team. But what's best for RaeQuan is not happening by the NCAA. It's a shame to see, a kid that thrives on hope and thrives on having the game of basketball in his life, and to be able to compete, and the people he inspires in the Tulalip reservation and the people of his tribe. It's dragging on him. It's a huge drag on him, and I feel like he's starting to lose that hope, and I worry like hell for RaeQuan and his mindset. So it's sad. It's really sad, especially considering he was the only Native American to play in the NCAA tournament last year.
Yeah.
And a kid that I hate to say it like this, but sometimes I think if it was a blind resume of sorts with some of these waivers, I think we would have got it approved. But it's just a shame. It's a complete shame for, talk about the wellness and of a student athlete. And I don't think they've at one point denied the fact that we have a mental health situation in this regard, and the fact that we still denied it, or the NCAA denied it twice, is a crying shame, if you ask me.
So if it does drag out, I mean, I'm guessing you have a certain date or a point in your mind where it wouldn't make sense, even if you were clear.
That would be a decision I'd have to make with RaeQuan in terms of doing the best by him. And right now, I just worry about his headspace, and I love that kid to death, and he's such an outstanding human being, and he's went through a heck of a lot of challenges in his life, and to have to go through not only losing his coach at Montana State, to transferring here to, I had a connection with him in the recruiting process, but he came here to play for Coach Huggins and lost another coach, and I stepped in as that role, and good thing that we've had such a good relationship from day one. But he's went through 2 coaching changes in the last, less than a year, and here we are. I mean, we're not denying the fact that he has a mental health issue, but we're still denying him the possibility to taking basketball out of his life for a year. It just doesn't make sense to me.
And one last thing with the shorthanded roster. I mean, it's one thing for you guys to talk about it, and for us to ask you questions about it, and you can, obviously everyone can do math. The SMU game, though, was really kind of the first game where it probably felt uh, like a shorthanded kind of roster. I'm just kind of wondering, what were the reactions after that game? I'm sure everyone was tired and that kind of thing, but and then moving forward, I mean, shorthanded is kind of going to be the topic of discussion, for the rest of the year almost. How after that SMU game, how do you deal with it now moving forward?
Well, first and foremost, I hope our guys understand, and we've talked about it before. The only person that's played big minutes in their career has been Jesse Edwards. So looking back now, Seth has played big minutes now for 5 games.
Yeah.
Kobe has, Josiah has. Hopefully we get ourselves more accustomed to playing these big minutes to where we feel like we're more comfortable with the rotation and the role we're in. We got to play the hand we're dealt. Right now, this is the hand we're dealt. So we got to figure that out. Back to the SMU game, yes, they kind of took advantage of us. They had the numbers. They had the numbers. They could make it a very physical game. And they did. I mean, that was smart on his part. He could throw guys at Jesse all night long and foul and make them call it, because he had no problem with his guys being in foul trouble. He could just send another athlete at us.
Another guy in.
Now, where it really came into play, and I could have probably done better job from a coaching perspective, was in that second half when we were breaking the press, which, hindsight's 2020. Had we back some of those, advantage situations where we got numbers and we broke the press rather than attack, we maybe probably should have pulled it out and ran some offense and slowed it down. And but that's a double-edged sword too. If
Sure.
The way we're playing, if we're up 11 at halftime, had we converted early in the second half and stretched that out to a 18, 20 point lead, that might have been a heck of a lot different ball game too. They might have backed out the pressure. So we were very aggressive against their pressure early in the second half. We just didn't convert. We had several opportunities and layups at the rim that we didn't convert. And so knowing that, that we didn't convert, it would have been smarter that we back it out and kind of slow it down and run more offense rather than getting the up and down ball game like we did.
Coach, I think that's all the time we have for today. I appreciate your time today, and thanks to everyone for calling in.
Thank you.